Hi, Parkway Manor. I cannot believe it. It's June 1st. Wow. We're continuing to read Dessert First. Last time we read, yikes, Dessert is getting into a little bit of trouble with her mom and dad. She's kind of doing some good things and some bad things. The good thing is she's trying to do what her teacher, Mrs. Howdy Doody, is telling her. And that is to stand up for what you believe and to not give up. The problem is, I think she's going after the wrong things. For example, she's trying to stand up and tell her parents that there should be dessert first before dinner. Well, as you can imagine, they are not liking this idea. So she's kind of getting herself in a little bit of trouble with her mom and dad. All right, we are on chapter 5. Timing is everything. The very next afternoon, things weren't going well at home. I'll explain. I was doing my homework upstairs because Charlie was pulling a wet towel all around the house and I didn't want to get blamed. I was nearly finished when I heard a very loud crash. And then I heard Wolfie's stool scraping across the kitchen floor. Daddy was at the restaurant and I knew Mommy needed help. So I jumped out of my chair and two-stepped it downstairs. The crash had come from the kitchen and that's where I found Mommy. She was on her knees cleaning up a whole bunch of broken dishes, while Mushy sat in a pile of sugar on the floor. Charlie was at the sink and the water was running. Wolfie was stuffing the toaster with marshmallows. First I unplugged the toaster so that Wolfie could not make toast. Next I tried to turn off the water, but Charlie held her arms straight out to her sides and yelled, "I'm doing dishes!" So I grabbed her arm and I pinched her skin a little. "Ow!" she screamed. "You're hurting me!" I pinched harder and I said, "Turn the water!" "Ow, ow, 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 ow. I'm hurt. I tipped her chair forward and she dropped to the floor. I grabbed her feet and started pulling. When Mushy saw this, he climbed on, and I dragged that whole screaming toboggan right into the living room. I'm stronger than I look. I went back in with the vacuum, and I let Wolfie suck up the sugar. He was pretty good at this because he rode the vacuum cleaner like a pony. I left the vacuum there for Mummy, and I gave Wolfie some Tupperware. He loves to play with all those plastic containers. It was pretty quiet again, so I went back upstairs to finish my work. And that's when I heard Mrs. Howdy Doody's voice in my head saying, "Timing is everything, boys and girls." I started to think that tonight might be the night that I could get my dessert before supper. So when I was done with my homework, I presented it to Mummy and said, "Madam, if you'll check this for me, I'll set the table for you." "Sure," said Mummy. "Let me just see what Charlie and the beasties are up to. They've been awfully quiet." So I set out all the big dinner plates with the little dessert plates on top. Then I went right into the cookie jar and took out 5 cookies. I placed one in the center of each plate and stepped back to admire my work. It was so beautiful to see those cookies sitting right there on top. But when Mummy returned with Charlie and the beasties and saw the table, she said, "Ah, so that's why you offered to set the table." "Well, it's one of the reasons," I admitted. "But try the cookie first tonight, okay?" I buckled Mushy into his high chair while Charlie and Wolfie sat down, and we all waited to see what Mummy would do. She looked around the table and finally said, "Very well then." And after we each ate our cookies, even Mummy, she served us our white chicken chili and then our corn cakes. I ate it all up, every single bit, and then I said, "Mummy, I've cleaned my plate." Mummy looked over and said, "Oh, so you have." Then she noticed that Charlie, Wolfie, and even Mushy had cleaned their plates too. And she said, "Wow, this is a very pleasant surprise. Who knew?" I guess I'm the leader. Chapter 6. The Duty Drive. "Are you ready for the spirit assembly?" Mrs. Howdy Doody asked us one Tuesday morning a few weeks later. I hollered, "Yes!" as loudly as I could, because the way I see it, if Mrs. Howdy Doody hadn't told me to march to my own drummer on that very first day of school, I wouldn't be eating dessert first every night. Mrs. Howdy Doody had changed my whole life. This month we are going to kick off Lambert Elementary School's first annual duty drive, she said, and we're going to find out what's possible when the whole school works together on a common goal. I see most of you are wearing red and white, just as I requested. I checked my clothes. I wasn't wearing much white, but I was wearing my favorite red dress. And I had on a pink undershirt, which I figured is a combination of red and white, so it works. Once we were all sitting down in the all-purpose room, Mr. Roberts, our principal, made an announcement. "Good morning, compatriots," he said. "I'd like to dedicate this morning's spirit assembly to Mrs. Normana Howdy Doody. As many of you know, Mrs. Howdy Doody is celebrating her 10th year of teaching with Lambert Elementary this month. And in honor of that, I'd like to announce the first annual Duty Drive." Mrs. Howdy Doody glided on stage in a dress that kind of looked like a gown. "My dear happy learners, good morning." "Good morning," we all shouted back. "On my way to school today," she said, "I noticed that the leaves are turning just the teeniest bit golden. The golden leaves made me think about trees, and the trees made me think about tree houses. Would you all like to play in a platform treehouse during recess?" "Yes!" we all shouted. "Well then, let the drive begin. Please welcome Donnie and Billy Blackett." I couldn't believe Donnie and Billy were up there. I hadn't heard anybody talk about this. They ran onto the stage and each of them did a handspring. Their feet touched down at exactly the same time. Well, now I knew they were good at gymnastics, but I didn't know they could do handsprings. Then they marched together off the right side of the stage and returned a moment later with a gigantic poster. And it said, "First annual duty drive. Be a doozy. Make a difference. Round up your pledges, and together we'll build a treehouse." Then Mrs. Howdy Doody said, clapping her hands, "Each of you must be a doozy. My dear happy learners, each of you must be a champion. Each of you must be extraordinary. Here's how it works. You each give up something you love. Your parents, in turn, make a pledge to you. And what this means is one small sacrifice for you and one giant treehouse for our elementary school." I wanted a treehouse, but the part about giving something up, now that sounded bad. She held up the microphone again and said, "To kick things off with you as my witnesses, I'm going to make my promise to Principal Roberts. Principal Roberts, please come to center stage." He stood by her side and she announced, "Principal Roberts, I hereby pledge to give up peanut butter and jelly sandwiches." "Oh, that will be a challenge," he said. "It's a worthy sacrifice, Mrs. Howdy Doody, and all for the greater good. I will pledge you $2 a day." "I will not let the school down, Principal Roberts." And they shook hands. I couldn't believe Mrs. Howdy Doody was giving up peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I had seen a jar of peanut butter in her top drawer, so I knew she loved it. "Mrs. Howdy Doody," said Principal Roberts, "I hereby pledge to give up watching ice hockey games on TV." "Oh, surely that will not be easy for you," said Mrs. Howdy Doody. "It is a worthy sacrifice and all for the greater good. I will pledge you also $2 a day." And they shook hands. Mrs. Howdy Doody looked at us and said, "We've made our pledges. It's time for you to make yours. The contracts will be in your folders and they are due back to school next Monday. Together, we'll build a treehouse." Oh, if only I could give up mayonnaise for my sacrifice. Oh, but my parents know I hate it. I wasn't sure about this duty drive. I wasn't sure I wanted to make a worthy sacrifice. And that is the end of our chapter. I apologize. I'm leaving us hanging. I'm dying to know, will she or will she not give up something? And I think you and I both know what she should give up. Now, whether she does, we don't know. Chapter 7 is called Brownies Baking. And I think that, whoops, And I think that Benji here would love to know more about this story too. Right, Benji? Can you say goodbye to the boys and girls? Hi, boys and girls. All right, Parkway Manor. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see everybody tomorrow for more of Dessert First. Have a great day, everybody.